Alright folks, how you doing? So in this video I'm going to be following up on the last one by giving you an example from this channel here called Raven Reads of how dangerous a stalker slash narcissist can truly be. I wasn't exaggerating at all in my last video, and you'll see what I mean when we get into this.
This is something that happened to me a month ago. It's still fresh in my mind, and quite frankly still gives me the chills whenever I go into work to this very day. Some background before I go into this story. I am a female that also happens to be gay. I have a girlfriend, and we both have promise rings. Rings that we show off to anybody that leans toward the flirtier side or tells us that they want to take us out on a date or something like that. Anyway, I work at a small mom-and-pop coffee shop in a small community with a few coworkers and a lovely boss that treats us all fairly well. We all get along well and even go out together outside of work to just hang out and have a good time. One coworker that I'm rather close to, and am now even closer to this day, Matt, is a tall guy, taller than me, and I'm 6 foot tall, with a slim but muscular build. He's a super nice guy. I think he even had a crush on me at some point until
I'm pretty certain he did.
he found out about my girlfriend, and we've been great friends since he started working at the shop with us. We get all sorts of people around the shop, mostly middle class or upper class people that all tend to be super sweet, apart from some picky entitled assholes, and
Yeah, you're always going to get that.
a few strangers that blow in from out of town. No big deal. We had a regular come in almost every weekend, and we'll call him James. James is a rather good-looking guy, however, a lot older than I am. Let's say that I am old enough to be in college, but not old enough to drink yet. According to my boss, he came around the shop about once every other week, just to treat himself, but ever since I started working there, he came in every weekend to buy a small coffee or some pastry to snack on.
Okay, so he's already stalking her. Good looking, that's not really a red flag, but it can be. Narcissists tend to, what's the mythological root of the word narcissist? It's based on, I think it's an old Greek myth of a guy who died because he couldn't stop staring at himself in the mirror. Narcissists are a lot more than that, but, that's the apparent origin, or one of the origin stories for narcissism in mythology. So, people who take a lot of pride in their appearance, it's not a guarantee they're a narcissist, but it is an indication that they certainly might be.
My boss joked, saying that it was because he had a crush on me. I laughed it off. I shouldn't have.
No, you should not have.
Whenever I was at the register, he would get this huge smile on his face and ask about my day, and I would
Anyone seen the movie Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro?
reply with some small talk and hurry to make his order so I could continue doing whatever else I had to do. If I wasn't at the register, he would wait until I was done making other orders so that I could cater to him only.
Okay, that should immediately be a red flag. Now, what did I say in the last video? You need to nip that shit in the bud early. You need to make it clear this is not appropriate and I'm not putting up with this. However, them being narcissists, they probably will rewrite all that in their head, but you do need to somewhat make the effort, because they might not be narcissists. It might just be a stalker, but a lot of stalkers are narcissists.
He didn't want anybody but me to help him at the register.
Now, also, her co-workers and her boss and her colleagues should have been paying close attention to this. Now, so far he's not done anything out of line, but they need to be paying attention.
I thought that was a little weird and had small red flags going off, but not enough to where
Darling, you should have had clarions going off with trumpets and bells and whistles. In other words, you should have been on full red alert. You need to nip this in the bud quick, very quickly.
I felt threatened or started to get paranoid.
Because this shit escalates very fast when you don't take action. You might not stop the narcissist, but you can at least slow them down.
Then he started asking
By time.
me some personal questions. He would ask about where I was going to school, if I lived in the neighborhood that was 5 minutes away. Some of us live about half an hour away from the coffee shop, what my favorite flowers were, etc.
Massive red flags. You should, The red alert alarm should be going full scale at this point, and get your colleagues to walk you to the car or to the bus or whatever. Never be on your own. You'll see why when we get... I've listened to this story before. You'll see why it's never a good idea to be alone with people like this.
At this point, I was uncomfortable with the questions and just gave very vague answers, and just outright ignored the prodding about my favorite flower.
I'd be swapping shifts or looking for another job by now. It wouldn't even take me this long.
As well as my school. I then casually brought up that my girlfriend and I were planning on going on a date at some point. I even told him about the ring she gave me and showed it to him so that he could see it wasn't some made-up ring.
Now, this is how you can tell this is a narcissist that she's dealing with, because a normal would be deflated, but they would drop it at this point. They would just sort of give up,
It's actually rather nice and references my favorite video game. And his entire attitude changed. He went from all smiles to a straight face, monotone voice as he snatched his coffee from me and briskly walked out the door.
Yeah, this is definitely a narcissist, because they always have to win. They can't lose. They cannot ever accept defeat. In fact, I like the video where H.G. Tudor talks about the rewriting of history, the revision of history.
I felt triumphant since I figured that would be the end of it, and I volunteered to take out the trash to the large bins out.
Well, if she'd been dealing with a normal, the majority of people are normals, thank God, but if she'd been dealing with an empath or a normal, it would have stopped right there. Well, you can automatically rule them out as being an empath because, an empath, would never behave like that. They wouldn't ask intrusive questions. A normal wouldn't either. Somebody who is narcissistic probably wouldn't, but a narcissist would, because remember, it's, boundary violations. They don't have boundaries. They violate people's personal territory at will. They feel entitled to it. That's how you definitely know this guy was a narcissist.
Side.
It sounds like a low-level narcissist as well.
The back of the shop is surrounded by other buildings that are also little restaurants and bars that all use the same bins.
I can tell he's low-level because of how direct he's being. Low-level narcissists are very aggressive.
And it's rare to encounter somebody else when you're going out to quickly dump the trash bags. Sometimes the other workers would be out having a smoke, but that wasn't until later at night, and the coffee shop closes at around 5 in the afternoon. I went outside at around 1 p.m., and as I was lugging the large bags, I noticed a man standing in the center of the sidewalk a few feet away.
Okay, massive red flag. It's getting to this point, you should be carrying pepper spray around with you, or a personal alarm, or, one of those hidden cameras that you can hide in the buttons of your shirt or whatever. You should be recording this guy's behavior, because then you'll have evidence. Like I said, you can get things on Amazon, like watches that have microphones in them and things like that. Or you should be alerting your colleagues so that you've got witnesses. This is the point where you should be getting restraining orders. Like I said, you don't always go to the police first with these things. Go to the court first and file a restraining order. Then when he violates it, you can call the police and get him arrested. But definitely, you should be doing everything you possibly can. Change your shifts. Get spy equipment off Amazon, watches with microphones in them. Pull your phone out and start recording what they're doing. Alert your supervisor, your boss, to monitor the CCTV at all times. File restraining orders. This is what you need to do. You need to act in every way you possibly can, as quickly as you possibly can.
Tons of people walk their dogs around that area, so I didn't think twice about it. Until I took a double take after throwing the bags in the bin. It was James. He was just staring at me. And
remember what I said in the previous video? It's all in the eyes. You can see it in their eyes. Not just their body language.
With my chronic anxiety and paranoia, something in me told me to stop looking and book it.
Yes, get the fuck out of there.
Back to the shop. Just as I turned around to start fast walking back, I heard large footsteps running towards me, and I instantly picked up speed. Just as I bolted up the steps and opened the door to the shop, turned around and slammed it, I saw that James was right behind me, hand about to stop the door until I shut it. I locked it behind me, hyperventilating due to the panic attack that was now coming on. Matt was working with me that day, and he heard me crying and struggling to breathe in the back, calling my girlfriend for me so that she could calm me down.
I would, I wouldn't just be calling your girlfriend. I'd be calling the fucking cops, man.
Now, although I am taller than my girlfriend, she is definitely the toughest out of the two of us and could take out a man twice her size due to all the training she's done since she was a kid. I relayed back to her what had happened, and she was livid. However, she...
Yeah, Matt and her girlfriend need to do a tag team, need to do a double team and kick this guy's ass. Send the stalker narcissist to the hospital for a one-way vacation for about a month in intensive care. No, but that won't do it. I mean, joking aside, violence never works on narcissists. It just pisses them off even more, actually.
couldn't come due to her being at work, so she asked Matt to kind of help me process what happened as we continued to work that day.
And by the way, this guy is not just a narcissist. Narcissism in and of itself, a lot of them have additional mental health issues, let's just say.
Over the next few weeks, James would come back and act like nothing happened. And then one week, he just stopped coming altogether. He didn't come in for about 3 weeks. And I was getting a little nervous because something told me that he was cooking up something really bad. Now I only work on weekends due to the fact that I'm in school, and Matt works both weekends and 2 days during the week. So I asked him to see if James would be coming in during those 2 days. He obliged and said he would let me know. I didn't get any texts during the week, and a feeling of dread was building up in my chest that I had to work that weekend. Friday, just as I was opening the shop, alone, the next person would not be coming in until a half hour after me, in walks James. Technically, we don't open until that second person comes in, but sometimes we let a couple of customers in early since they only want their coffee of the day so they can take off and get to work. Therefore, the stupid front door was unlocked. I was terrified to my very core. I never open alone, and the one time I do, James somehow knew this and took it as his chance.
Yeah, because he's a stalker. He's watching everything. He's, listen, folks, stalkers, narcissists, they are no joke, as you're about to find out.
As I saw him walk up, I texted my boss, who was off that day, to look at the cameras and tell Matt, who was working with me and was coming in a half hour later, to hurry up because I did not want to be alone with this man. He started his usual small talk, and I obliged, not wanting to possibly set him off. He started going on about how pretty I was, comparing me to models such as Tabria Majors, Summer Green, etc. Flattering, but no thanks.
Lack of boundary recognition. Monopolizing your attention. These are all narcissistic traits.
And I just kind of nodded and thanked him. Then he switched his demeanor again. He wasn't straight-faced, nor did he change his tone, but there was something in his eyes that told me that he was calculating what he was going to do next depending on my answer. Now, I'm not a quick thinker when put under pressure, especially when I'm terrified like this, but I put up one hell of a fight. Thank you, military parents. I did mention that James was good-looking and older, but he was also way more muscular than I was. I knew that if he was going to grab me, I had to do everything I could to wiggle my chubby self out of his grasp if he jumped over the counter, or if he tried to run around to the back, grab one of the knives we used when making the food, and do whatever with it. He started saying how he wanted to take me out, that he would treat me much better than this so-called girlfriend of mine.
See, lack of boundary recognition. A normal person would not say that. A normal person would have just dropped it by now.
Yeah, right. And that I should call her and break up with her right now.
See, this is narcissists, They are the only person in their world, Everyone else is just an appliance. Like I said, you have no right to say no to them. You have no right to turn them down. You have no right to, not do what they say because they're the king of their own little fantasy world. You have to realize how dangerous narcissists are.
This took me by surprise, and he knew by the look on my face
And if this video doesn't prove how dangerous they can be, I don't know what the fuck will. Listen on.
Because this time he slammed his fist against the counter and screamed, Call that bitch right now and break up with her or you'll fucking regret it.
This is Narcissism 101. They are the center of their own universe. Everything is about them and their own little world. They are, this is self-entitlement. This is exactly what narcissism is. No boundary recognition whatsoever. Tramples all over you, walks all over you. You belong to them in their mind. You are their personal property. Rights? What the fuck's that? You got the right to remain silent. That's about it. Shut the fuck up and do as you're told.
I was on the verge of tears and I picked up my phone, opening Matt's contact and calling him, praying that he would pick up. Someone or something was on my side that day because he picked up on the first ring. Hello? Hey, baby, there's something I need to tell you. What?
This isn't a funny story, but that part's quite funny. Like, what? When you remember that he had a crush on her at one point.
I was sweating, trying not to look at James too much, as he seemed pretty satisfied that I had actually listened to him, his arms crossed as I continued holding back my tears. I know that we've been dating for a while now, but there's a guy that I met at the shop, and it made me realize I don't think I can keep this relationship up with you anymore. Matt instantly picked up.
And the fact that the narcissist, actually thinks that she might actually be saying this and meaning it, what more can I say?
Up on how shaky my voice was and the small innuendo I made that I was not alone at the shop, and I could hear him running down the stairs in his house and the jingling of his car keys. Don't hang up the phone. I'm coming. That fucking prick is going to get what's coming to him. I'm going to text the boss so they can call the cops. Fuck, just don't hang up. Matt lived in the same neighborhood that I did, which was only a few minutes away, and I prayed to whoever that he was breaking every speed limit out there to back me up. I know you're upset. No, it isn't you. It's me. I paused now, and then to act like there was a legit conversation happening, I stayed on the phone even longer. The more suspicious James had started to become, the more nervous I got. He had uncrossed his arms and was slowly making his way toward the small opening that led to the small area where we worked, making my skin crawl as I tried to act like I was going to abruptly end the call. Look, I'm sorry, but we can't do this anymore. Don't call me again. I hung up and put my phone in my back pocket, raising my hands to show that I wasn't going to do anything. Now, was that so hard? The way James was looking at me, I've only ever encountered that look once, and it was something that I never wanted to see again. I simply shook my head, my eyes now and then quickly looking to the front door to spot Matt's car.
Okay, don't raise any suspicions, darling. You might want to not be so obvious.
For a moment, it was just a heavy silence that was sort of hanging in the air. And then before I knew it, James was throwing the small knickknacks on the counter at me in a fit of rage, screaming that I...
Yeah, this is classic low-level narcissist. Violence. They resort to violence very quickly and very easily in order to, gain control over situations and people.
I should never have had a girlfriend in the first place, and that it always should have been him. I panicked.
See the level of self-entitlement narcissists have? I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating when I say they are the king of their own little universe, their own little fantasy world. I mean, this is extremely diluted. Absolutely. But this is what a narcissist is. This is what a low-level narcissist is.
Panicked and grabbed one of the knives in the drawer, putting some distance between he and I as I slowly but sternly shouted at him.
Well, you're not going to win this situation by trying to gain control over him. I can tell you that. You never gain control over narcissists. Do not even attempt it. It's extremely dangerous to do this, what she's doing here. But I don't blame her because she doesn't know what to do. But just don't do this.
I'm gay. I don't want your saggy, limp, microscopic dick or anyone else's. Spit was flying out of my mouth as the adrenaline slowly turned my panic.
That's just what you never do. You never threaten narcissists. It won't end well. The situation is only going to escalate if you do that.
Into anger. Before James could even hop the counter, which he looked like he was about ready to do.
He was. I think he probably would have killed you.
probably to murder me.
Yep.
The back door slammed open, and in came Matt, holding a metal bat, shouting with his deep voice that if James didn't get the fuck out before the cops arrived, he would gladly beat the shit out of him. I instantly ran to Matt and stood behind him, and just as James was about to lunge for the both of us, the red and blue lights outside made him think twice as he bolted towards the back door. Matt tried to block him, but
Thank God for Matt, otherwise you would be dealing with a homicide.
it didn't work, and just as the cops had burst inside, James was already gone. By then, I was a shaking mess. The adrenaline that had been holding me together completely fled as I fell to the floor and started to sob. Matt once again called my girlfriend, who thankfully was off that day and was rushing from her place in the city to come and see me. One of the cops tried their best to calm me down, while the other was talking to Matt and asking for a description, telling us that another car was patrolling the area to see if they could catch him. Apparently, he had come to the shop on foot and found his car parked a couple of streets away from the center where all the restaurants were, and in some neighborhood that I hadn't been in. My boss came in as soon as they could and gladly handed over the security footage that they had gotten from that morning. I was allowed to go home for the rest of the day, but I chose to go to my girlfriend's place just in case, and they told me that if I ever saw James in my area or my girlfriend's area, not to hesitate to call them again. They alerted the cops in her area as well, since we both hop back and forth between our places every now and then. My boss posted his face outside the shop as well and inside
Which he should have done from the beginning, by the way. Shouldn't have allowed it to get this far.
the shop to let people know that if they saw this man, they were to call the police, and that he was not allowed to come inside, especially during the weekends. It just makes me think if Matt hadn't lived so close to me, and if I hadn't stalled him for so long, where would he have taken me? Would he have hurt me in the shop, or dragged me back to his car and taken me somewhere else? I truly believe that this man had something very sinister planned for me. So, James, you fucking creep that can't take no for an answer,
Because he's a narcissist.
let's not meet again.
Well, I hope this is a cautionary tale. You need to nip the shit in the bud fucking early on. Do everything you possibly can as soon as you possibly can, and don't let things escalate to this point. Alright? This is no joke, man. This is a very serious subject. Narcissist stalkers. Most of them are. Not all, but most. Anyway, thanks for watching.